of people. They're good people. They do good things. They have like most of the scripture memorized. But here's the thing with the religious people. They don't like people that are different than them. They don't like people that don't live up to their standards. And they call those people sinners. And so Jesus is caught between the religious people and this group known as the sinners. Everyone say sinners. Really good. Really hold out the S. Sinners. That was good. That was good. Okay, good. So Jesus finds himself between these two groups. And this religious group, they got some beef with Jesus. They got some stuff with Jesus they don't like. And here's what they say to Jesus. They say, whoa, 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 whoa. Jesus welcomes sinners and eats with them. So most of us would be like, okay, big whoop, who cares? Well, to them, you were not, who you ate with was really important. If you ate a meal with someone, you were identifying with them. You were kind of connected to them. You were kind of unified with them, and people would associate you with them. And so the religious people did not like that Jesus was associating with sinners. They didn't like it. And so this is the problem. This is the conflict that Jesus has to address. And there's almost this implication of like, is it wrong that Jesus is welcoming sinners and eating with them? Is it wrong that Jesus is welcoming sinners and eating with them? And that's what's going to be expounded upon in our passage, and that's what we're going to look at. Is this okay that Jesus is welcoming sinners? Is it okay that he's eating a meal with them? We're going to explore that. Now, what Jesus does, like 9 out of 10 times in the New Testament, is he's going to take a question or he's going to take an accusation, and rather than try to defend or argue against it, he's going to tell a story. And so what Jesus does here is he tells 3 stories. He tells, and they're called parables. And he tells the parable of a lost coin, a lost sheep, and a lost son. However, as we get into the lesson today, we're actually going to find out that this parable, the story of the lost son, is actually the parable of the lost sons, because there's 2 sons in the story, and both we're going to see how they're off base. Now, to get into the story, to tell the story well, I recruited some help. I'm a visual learner. I have 0 attention span, so I like to move around a lot, and I like to have people assist me as I'm teaching. So, the first character introduced in our story that Jesus is telling these religious people, he introduces a story in which there is a father. So I need the father to make his way out, and I hope he's ready. The father. Let's give it up for the father. Let's give it up for the father. Let's give it up. Now, don't let him fool you. He brought this outfit from home, okay? All right, so father, I need you to stand back here. This is the father. Now, I need to tell you a couple of things about the father in the story. Now, maybe you've heard, I call this the story of the lost sons. Maybe you've heard this story referred to before as a parable of the prodigal son. We're going to refer to it as the parable or the story of the lost sons. And I've heard this story a million times growing up. What I want to do tonight is maybe show you some aspects of the story that you did not know or were not familiar with. And when you know the culture of Jesus' day and when you know the audience Jesus was talking to, the story changes a little bit. It takes on some more meaning. So here's a couple of things I need to tell you about the culture of Jesus' day and how the father would fit into that culture. Now, I picked him because he's tall, he's handsome, and I feel like he's a respectable person, right? So would you agree with that? No? Okay, would you guys agree with that? Okay, good. See, they're showing you some love, man. Okay, so the father would be an elderly gentleman. He would be the head of his household. But what's more, he would often be the head of a whole village. And this man was older than everyone else, so everyone looked up to him. And in this culture and in this society, to be an elder, to be an older person, you were highly respected. You were treated extremely well. Everyone did what you said. Now, our culture is a little different today, but in this culture, being older, automatically everyone looked up to you. Automatically people respected you. So everyone respected the father. He was a person that demanded respect. Now, he would carry himself a certain kind of way. An elder statesman or a father in this kind of scenario, again, head of a village, he would stand upright. You got great posture, dude. You're already good. You're already set. He would also wear a long, luxurious robe. You guys like that? Woo, nice robe. So he'd wear a long, luxurious robe. Now, this robe, this will factor in later. It's a little restrictive in how he can move, okay? Like if he was chased by a bear, he's probably not going to survive if he's wearing this skirt, okay? But here's the thing. This was intentional. An older man in this culture and society did not do work. He's past that. He was too old for that. So he wouldn't like bend over to do things, bend down to do things. He wouldn't sweat. He had younger people to do that for him. What's more, and similarly, he would not run anywhere. He would walk, he would follow me. He would walk at a slow pace. So it'd be something like this. He'd stand tall, follow me, and he'd walk at a slow pace. Okay, there we go. He'd walk at a slow pace. And when he would walk like this and when he would be dressed like this, and because he probably had gray hair, people were like, oh, that man is to be respected. That's the father in this culture, all right? Now, the second character we have in the story today is the older brother. We're not giving specific names. We're just giving an older brother. So older brother, come on out. Give it up for the older brother, everybody. Show him some love. Show him some love. Show him some love. Our older brother, I need you right here. All right, so the older brother in the story would respect his father. Everyone in the village, everyone in the house respected the father, all the more the oldest. He had several roles to fill. He had several things to do. But here's the thing. I'm going to give you two things to remember tonight about the older brother. First of all, the older brother was supposed to act on the father's behalf to make peace in family relationships. So if there was a problem with one of the other siblings, the older brother was supposed to step in. If there was some tension with cousins in the family or another family within the village, the oldest son was supposed to step in and handle that. There you go. You got him. So he was kind of a buffer because, again, the father can't be bothered with this stuff. He's lived too long. He's seen too much. He's too tired. It needs to be respected. Now, the second function, besides making peace amongst the family, the second function the oldest son would serve is he would often, actually not often, always host parties for the father. So if the father was having this big shindig inviting the whole village, it would be shameful for the father to be at the door welcoming everyone. That's not what an elder statesman does. That's not what a father does. That's below him. That's beneath him. Rather, the oldest son, to honor his father, would be back at the door to greet the guests. He would bring people into the banquet. He would bring people into the feast while the father sat at the head table, which was a place of respect and honor. So that's what the oldest son would do. So first thing, he would mediate and reconcile relationships in the family. The second thing he would do is he would host parties and, again, be that kind of buffer to the father. That's what the oldest son does. Now, there's one more character in the story we're going to look at, and it is the youngest son. So let's bring out the youngest son. Bring him out. Youngest son, get out of here. There we go. Give it up for the youngest son. Give it up, give it up, give it up. All right, youngest son, I need you right here. All right, so we have the youngest son. His role, it's pretty easy. Just honor the father, okay? Just honor, respect the father, honor and respect the oldest brother's role. So are we all clear on the characters and what they're supposed to do in the household? Give me some head nods if you're getting it. Give me some head nods if you're getting it. Okay, we're good. Okay, don't hurt your neck. That was really... Okay, so you got really into that. So we have our characters set up. Here's where the action unfolds. And this crazy thing happens that, again, if you've heard the story as a kid, you might think like, so who cares? It's not a big deal. In this culture, it was a huge deal. One day, the youngest son, raise your hand, youngest son, wave to the people. The youngest son gets a bright idea. He comes to the father, so let's walk over to the father. He walks over to the father, he holds out his hand, and he demands his share of the inheritance. Now, some of us might think this is a bad look, but like probably more so like, hey, how rude. He's like asking his dad for money. That's kind of rude. Like he's asking his dad for his inheritance before he gets it. That's kind of greedy and selfish. Yes, it's greedy and yes, it's selfish. But it's actually worse than that. In this culture, this is a thing that is not done. This would not happen. Essentially what this dude is doing, he's not basically just being like, hey, dad, can I have some money? What he's doing is he's basically saying, hey, old man, could you please hurry up and die? No, actually, I wish you were dead so then I could get my share of the inheritance. That's cold. Like, that's cold. I know, that's me. So, I'd have given him a whooping, but that's just me. So, there's this book by this guy named Kenneth E. Bailey, and he researches a lot of stuff about this culture and the culture of Jesus' day and the people that would have been listening to the story. And this guy, the scholar, says when he talks to people that still exist in a culture like this, he says when he tells them this story, they all go, what? Like they don't say, what? Has he lost his mind? They can't believe it. And so this same scholar has asked people in this similar culture, hey, what would you do if your oldest son came and did this? They're like, give him a whooping and kick him out of my house because you don't do that. So this is a highly offensive thing. I need you guys to pick up on that. So he asked for his share of the inheritance. Before his father is dead, he's essentially asking, Dad, please hurry up and die and give me my money. Shocking. Appalling. But here's what's even more shocking. The father gives him his portion of the inheritance. Again, to the listening audience, they would have been like, what? What's he doing? Like, they wouldn't have understood it. What's the father? Is there something wrong with him? Like, why? He's just probably dishonored and disrespected himself by giving the youngest son money. This is something you did not do. But it happens in the story. Plot twist. Now, this would create some tension, probably between the father and the son, because the father is disrespected and the father is wounded by this. And so there's some relational conflict here. Who was supposed to help mediate and make peace in such altercations and fights like this? Who was supposed to? Point to him. Hey, yeah, the oldest. In the story, is he doing that? No, he fails. So he's not honoring and respecting the father by being like, whoa, little brother, we need to talk. So he's kind of dropped the ball there, and this is not the only time he's going to do this in the story. So he messes up. This guy is messed up by asking for the money. But here's what happens. He takes his inheritance, and in this culture, once you received your inheritance from your father, oh no, I just kicked something. Once you received your inheritance from your father, here's what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to kind of post up in the father's house for a significant amount of time. Hear that? A significant amount of time. Then, if you wanted to, you could sell your inheritance for money and then go do whatever you wanted. Okay? So, like, I'll use an analogy. If my dad passed away and left me his house, in today's culture, I could just say, I have a house, Pops. I'm just going to go ahead and just sell the house immediately and collect the money on that. In this culture, you weren't allowed to do that. You weren't supposed to do that. And to this culture, if I was still living this way today, I would have to live in my dad's house after he's passed on, and I'd have to live there for a significant amount of time. Then I could cash it in and go do whatever I wanted. To do anything less would be to disrespect the legacy and disrespect the memory of my father. And if my father is still alive, it would be to disrespect him in the here and now. So the youngest son is supposed to, even though he's not supposed to ask for his inheritance, and he does, he could at least maybe try to salvage honoring his father by dwelling in the father's house before he cashes his chips in. The story says in Luke 15, after just a few days, the youngest son splits and leaves. This is highly disrespectful to the father. And so here's what happens. The son leaves, and he goes to a far country. We're not told where. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to go. You're going to walk off stage here. You're going to walk around and walk all the way to the back towards the exit sign. Go for it. Go take a trip. So he goes off to the far land. Peace out. He's leaving his dad. Now, he has disrespected his father twice. Everyone hold up a 2 so you know. He's disrespected his father twice already. Now, normally when you leave the father's house and you've disrespected the father, here's what would happen to you. The people of the village here, stand up so we can see you. Wave at us. You're in the far country. Woo! All right, so stay posted up there. Whenever you left the father's house on bad terms and in disrespect, here's what would happen. The people of the village, to honor and respect the honorable father, they would perform this ceremony. I won't give you the Aramaic name, but it's called the cutting off. And what they would do is they would get this bowl, and they put like walnuts and like corn husks in there, and they would take the bowl, and as you were leaving, they would throw it on the ground, and all the stuff would break. And sometimes they even throw the bowl down, and they would break it. Now, this seems really weird to us. And, like, you probably never, like, left for school, like, bye, Mom, bye, Dad, and they, like, broke some stuff. Well, hopefully not. But in this culture, that symbolized them being broken off from their family, being cut off from the community. So if you disrespected the father and then left, you were cut off. You were not coming back. In fact, the community would consider you, ready for it? Dead. So I know, ouch, though. And so even oftentimes, now in our story today, as we'll see, oftentimes, if you'd ask the father, like, hey, what happened to the other son of yours? The father would be like, he's dead. He's dead, or at least he's dead to me. Socially, he's dead. So that's what you need to realize as the son goes to the far country. Now, as the son is in the far country, wave at us, youngest son, he lives like an idiot, okay? Sorry. But he lives like an idiot. And he takes all of his money and wealth, and he wastes it all. And things get so bad that he has to become a servant to a pig farmer, and he's working around pigs. I mean, no one's probably like wanting to major in that in college at the time. And so he's working with these pigs, and then things get really bad in the land, and there's a famine, and there's no food, and it's an economic crisis. There's no jobs. There's no food. So here's what he ends up having to do. He gets so desperate for food, he has to eat the same food that the pigs are eating. This is not a 5-star restaurant. This is not gourmet cuisine. This is pig food, and it's disgusting. So this dude had a sweet setup. He was living in the father's house. Things were going well. They were wealthy. They were well-to-do. Problem, now he's in a far country, disrespected his father, rebellious, disobedient, squandered all his money by being an idiot, and now he's feeding on pig food. It's not looking good for him. Now, it's in this moment, at his lowest, that he has a realization. And it says in the text that he comes to himself. That means he gets an idea. He goes, wait a second. While he's out here in the far country, he goes, the servants in my father's household are eating good right now, and I'm out here feeding with pigs. I'm out here eating pig food. So he forms a plan. Now, when I read this as a kid and I watched cartoons on this, I always kind of thought that the youngest son felt really bad for what he did, and he was sorrowful and repentant and was like, oh, man, I hurt my dad's feelings. As I studied it more, that's not what I see. He basically comes up with an idea. He just goes, wait a second, this is dumb. Why am I starving? I could go be a servant in my father's household, and then I would be eating way better food than this. And so then here's what the youngest son says. He goes, whoa. I got it. I know what I'll say to my dad. I will go to my dad and I'll say, forgive me, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as a hired servant in your household. Now, here's the thing. I suggest, upon my reading of this text and studying, that this is just a rehearsed speech that he's going to pitch to his dad. Here's why I suggest this. Nowhere in the text does it say, I've sinned against heaven. He says, rather, I'm going to say I sinned against heaven and my father. So, again, it's not like he's really feeling this way. He just says, I'm going to say it to my father. And here's the thing, spoiler alert, he actually is going to try to rehearse this speech verbatim, word for word, to his father at the end of the story, or just here in a second. So picture it like this. Like, it's almost like he has a little note card. If you've ever taken public speaking, you have a note card. It's almost like he has this rehearsed speech, and he's like, hey, Pops, forgive me for I sinned against heaven, oh, the ink smearing, and against you. Make me as a hired servant in your house. Ding, ding, ding. And he's trying to get his father to take him back, right? Not very honest, not very contrite, not very upfront and real with his dad. What's more, if we were looking for repentance or remorse in this text, we would look for words like repentance and remorse. Or we look for something to say, he changed his mind or he turned from his ways. That's not in the text. It doesn't say that anywhere. What's more, if you look at the motivation behind why he wants to go home, it's not because he feels bad. It's not because he's sorrowful. It's not because he realized he did something wrong. The motivation is food. He's starving and he wants to go home so he can eat food. So the crazy part is the youngest son is not really repentant. He's just going to try to play his dad with this speech. So let's see how this goes. So I need you, youngest son, to start the long road home. You're going to walk across this aisle, okay? You're going to walk across this aisle here in front of the tech booth. So go for it. I'm going to meet you over here. And so there's this road home, okay? So a lot of times there would be, and you're going to hold it right there, there would be like a village set on a hill. And so the son, I'm going to come out here. The son is set up and positioned to go home to the father, okay? Well, here's what happens. This man's done nothing but disrespected his father, done nothing but acted like an idiot in the far country, and he's not really repentant. He's just going to try to pitch the speech to his dad to see if he can get some food. So here's what happens. It says in the text that he's on the way home. Now, catch this in the story. I didn't catch this when I was younger. He's not home yet. He doesn't even have an opportunity to get home, knock on the door, and be like, hey, Dad, sorry. He's at the end of the road, Great Boys to Men song, and his dad sees him and has compassion. The text points this out. It says the father sees, everyone says sees, and has compassion. Everyone say compassion. He sees and has compassion. In this society, that's not a normal reaction. That's not something that they would do. The father would see and probably be like, you guys mind locking the doors real quick? He's dead. Like the dead guy's home. We're not letting him back in. No, the father sees and has compassion. It's kind of weird. It's almost like the dad was just waiting on the porch for his son to come home, which, again, is something you wouldn't do in this culture. Father sees and has compassion. And here's what the text says next. It says the father runs to meet his son. Now let's review. Does an older statesman, a father, a respectable figure in this culture, does he ever run? No. Here's another thing you need to know. One of the reasons why this father wore a long gown, it was obviously to communicate wealth and respect, but also, I don't know why this is the case, but in this culture, it was it was shameful for an old man to show off his legs. Which, if you've ever seen like a guy pushing 75 in bike shorts at the gym, you get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude. So he's not supposed to show his legs, and he's not supposed to run. If he's going to run, is he going to be able to run in this? No, he's not going to be able to. So what's he going to have to do to run? Did someone say take it off? No, too far. You know, no, he has to hike. I heard a lot of the right answers. I heard one, take it off. No, he just would have to hike it up. He'd have to hike up his skirt and show off his legs. Now, as I stop. All right, come on. Weirdos. All right. So he would have to show off his legs. This in his culture would be shameful. All the other villagers would have, what? And they would have looked down on him. They would have judged him. So he hikes up his skirt, and he doesn't care because he wants to welcome his son. So you jump off the stage, and he runs to his son. So you can just lightly jog. There you go. All right, and so here's what happens. No, you're right. So it says that the father, now this is in the original language, this is how they put it. It sounds weird. It says he fell on his neck. The father did not trip. This is just a way of saying that he embraced him. So the father gave him a hug. Give him a hug. Oh, come on. That's beautiful. It's my special boy. So you guys wipe away those tears, those beaded tears running down your cheeks. Okay. So he hugs his son. Then, this is next level. Not only does he not give his son a whooping, not only does he say, dude, remember, you're cut off, you got to go. He turns and he screams to the household and he says, whoa. Guys. Go get my finest robe. Go get my finest ring. Go get all the nice clothes. Go kill a fat cow and we're going to have a party. We're going to celebrate. We're having a fat cow party because my son was dead. Because remember, socially, he was considered dead. He says, my son was dead, but now he's alive. He was lost and now he's found. Now, you might hear fat cow party and be like, what's he talking about? In this day and age, to celebrate a big event, you would kill a fattened calf. Has anyone here ever had a party where someone killed a fattened calf for you? No? You wish, man. You wish. Okay. In this culture of society, we think cows, we're like, yeah, cow, there's like a billion of them. You drive out through the countryside, you see a million of them. When you hear cow in the story, don't think like story, or don't think like the animal. Think about wealth. A cow in this culture would be like killing a fattened calf for your son in this culture would be like your parents buying you a car. Like, it's that much money. Like, you didn't have a lot of cows back then. If you did, they were super expensive. So it's almost like he's like, hey, give him my finest ring and jewelry and clothes and get him a new car. This is next level. This dude has done nothing but dishonored his dad. His motives are impure. He's still in sin and rebellion, and his dad welcomes him, embraces him, and is going to throw him a fat cow party. Everyone say fat cow party. Maybe your birthday wish or theme for this year's birthday party. So then they go back into the house. So both of you guys, let's go. They go back into the house for this fat cow party. Now, at this time, the older son, what's he been doing? Older son is out working in the field. Older son, I need you to go stand by that exit sign. Older son is working out in the field, being a good oldest son, managing the father's property, doing all the things he's supposed to. That's good. And as the oldest son is out working, he hears a sound in the distance. I don't know what kind of music they played back then, but it's like party music. Okay? Apparently he heard house music and came running. So he drew near, took a couple steps towards this oldest son. He took some steps near. What's going on? Is there a party going on? So then he asks someone around. He goes, whoa, what's happening? What's happening in the house? What's going on over there? And one of the father's workers says, oh, dude, your brother who was lost is home now, and your dad killed the fat calf and is having a fat cow party for him. Get there. But here's what the oldest son does. He turns around and walks right back to his work. Oh, snap. Now let's go back all the way to the beginning of the lesson. The oldest brother had two roles. One was to mediate and reconcile relationships. The second one was to what? What was he supposed to do? Who remembers? Host that party. Everyone said, host that party. Woo! He's supposed to host a party. The oldest son heard a party going on. He turns around. Is he doing his job? No. And by not doing his job, he is disrespecting the father. Just like the youngest son did. So if he's mad at the youngest son, he's being a hypocrite because he's disrespecting the father too. But the father's like, I got this. So the oldest brother, let's meet over here, is walking across. He's like, man, this is ridiculous. And the father walks back out to him. So let's go, Father. We're going back again. Here we go. You don't have to run this time. So he comes to meet his oldest son. And he goes, again, remember, you've heard the prodigal son. This is actually the story of the two sons. Because now we're right back we were a second ago with the second son. And he goes, dude, what's going on? And the son gets bitter and resentful. And he says, well, so basically, I've been working with you for years. Here, come a little closer here. He says, I've been working for you for years. I've done everything you've asked me to. I've been obedient. And never once did you even throw me a fat goat party. A fat goat party. It's like a step below the fat cow party, and it's like just a fat goat party, okay? These are some weird parties, but again, party planning ideas, okay? So, party themes. So he's like, you never even gave me a fat goat party. You give him a fat cow party. Resentful, jealous, bitter. And the father is taken aback, and the father just goes, whoa, 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 dude. You've been with me all these years, and literally everything I have is yours. And then he says this, he goes, but it was right, and it was good, and it was fitting for me to celebrate your brother because he was dead. Remember, he was dead socially, dead to the village, and is alive again, and he was lost and now is found. So what's the older brother going to say to this? Is he going to be like, Dad, you're right? Or is he just going to be like, whatever, and walk back out? Ready for it? Ready? Do you guys know what he does? It doesn't say. Cliffhanger! We don't know! We're left hanging. And that's the brilliance of the story. So, let's get back to our context. You guys can go sit down. Let's give it up for everyone that was in this message today. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. You can go sit down. Yeah, you're good. So here's the thing. Let's get back to the original context. Jesus finds himself between two people, religious people and sinners. And the religious people don't like that Jesus welcomes sinners and eats with them and associates with them. So Jesus tells them this story. And if you haven't noticed, by the end of the story, the youngest brother is obviously the sinner, and the oldest brother is obviously the religious person. And so Jesus does not tell them how the religious person responds because he basically is saying, well, what are you going to do? And what Jesus has highlighted and emphasized through the story is that the oldest brother, while he did all the right things, was just as hypocritical because he was judgmental and he disrespected the father by not fulfilling his roles. He's just as wrong and just as sinful as the sinner. And so Jesus leaves these religious people in this tension. So where does this find us today? So Jesus tells us the story. What do we do with it? So perhaps you're here today and you feel like the oldest brother, the older brother. Maybe what you struggle with is feeling resentment towards people who you would consider sinners. And maybe you would say like, oh, no, I would never do that. But maybe, I don't know, I did a weird impression of you just then. But you might think like, no, I would never say that. I would never say that. But maybe you find yourself saying things like, can you believe what the old girl did in group? Like, I can't believe she does all that stuff and then she wants to come to church. Or it's like, well, that person is a hot mess. And yes, you want to be careful about the company you keep, but you want to be equally careful about how you speak about people you dub and deem sinners and how you view them. You should have compassion towards them like the Father had compassion. So maybe you're the oldest child in the story, and maybe what you need to realize and work on is, hey, I'm kind of self-righteous. I kind of think highly of myself. I kind of look down on others. I tend to get in a closed circle with my church people and like kind of to the exclusion of everyone else. Maybe that's where you are. And maybe what you need to realize is you're being hypocritical because you're being just as sinful as the sinner. And maybe what you really need to realize is you are being just as disrespectful to God because God calls us to welcome others. But maybe you're here today and you associate more with the youngest son. Maybe you're here today and you feel far from God. Maybe you're out in rebellion. Maybe you're out doing things you know you should not be doing. And maybe you're like, yeah, that sounds kind of familiar. Here's my warning to you. If you spend your life chasing things like the youngest son chased, if you spend your time chasing things in the far country, chasing your appetites, chasing the things you want, you will spend your whole life chasing. I've talked to people that all they did their whole life was just chase the next thing, chase the next thing. What's that? Ooh, the next thing that brings me pleasure. Ooh, the next thing I want to do. And they spend their whole lives chasing. They get to the end of their lives and they go, yeah, I never really found it. Maybe that is you today. And maybe today, you find yourself feeding with pigs when you could be feasting in the Father's house. And if that is you today, I just need to ask you this question. You know you can come home, right? You're never too far off. And God's hand is never too short to save. So maybe you think like, no, like, whatever, preacher man, you don't know what I've done. You're never too far. I just don't really feel like repenting right now. I am holding on to this stuff. Yeah, so is the youngest son. You're not too far. Maybe you're here and you're like, well, I was a Christian. I was super involved. I got really jaded by the whole thing. I don't even believe anymore. I don't even know why I'm here. You're not too far. And what I love about this story is we see a very clear and defined picture of the gospel. And just as the Father saw and had compassion on his Son, so God has ever and always looked at his creation, looked at people with that same kind of compassion, that same kind of love. And just as the Father ran to the Son, not walked, not waited, ran to the Son, so God in Jesus has moved towards us, has met us where we are, even in our sin and even in our unrepentance. And just like the Father, as he shamed himself by pulling up his skirt and by running and showing off his legs, so God in Jesus has taken our shame on the cross. It says in Scripture that God took on flesh and made his dwelling among us in Jesus. And that he took on sinful flesh. He took on flesh to take on sinful flesh. And it says that he who knew no sin became sin for us in our place, that we might have the righteousness of God, that we might be in right standing. And so we see that in the story too, as the Father embraces the Son. So we are brought into God's embrace, and we are brought into right standing. And just as the Son is lavished with gifts and love, so God has lavished his love upon us, and he has brought us back into the family. And the New Testament writers talk about this all the time. They say things like, no, we've been adopted through what Jesus has done. By standing in our place, taking our punishment that was due to us, by taking the shame that was due to us, by taking the consequence of all the wrong things we've done, Jesus has stood in our place, and he has allowed us to come back to the family of God, to be adopted back as a son and a daughter. And here's the crazy part of the story. Remember how the son rehearsed that speech that he was going to give? And he was supposed to say, forgive me, Father. I've sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as a servant in your house. The Father never lets the Son actually finish the speech. The Son says, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. And the Father stops and says, whoa, go fetch the stuff. Go fetch all the ring and the bowl and all that stuff. He doesn't let his son finish his speech. He does not let his son say, make me a servant in your house. Because you know what? His son is not a servant in his house. It's his son. So likewise, God meets us where we're at. He embraces us where we're at. He brings us back and adopts us into his family. And we are not slaves and servants to do the same tired junk we've always done. We are sons and daughters. We are not slaves and servants. We are sons and daughters. And just as the Father brought the Son in and gave him all that stuff, God has lavished upon us grace upon grace. And just as the Father said, I'm sorry, but I have to celebrate because my son was dead and now he's alive. God celebrates every single time. Jesus says this in the passage. Every single time one person repents and comes to him, says all of heaven celebrates. So today, whether you're found or being found, may you realize in a new and profound way that God in Jesus, in his great love and his great compassion, is the God who does not let us get to the end of the road, who does not let us get to the end of our sentence, but meets us where we're at, even in our sin, even in our transgression, even in our bad motives and our rebellion, and he embraces us, and he confronts us with grace, and he lavishes us with his love, and he says to us, you are not a servant or a slave, you are a son and you're a daughter. So may you realize that today, and may you sing loudly in this next song, and may you celebrate the love of God, the overwhelming, never-ending, never-changing, unrelenting love of God that brings dead things to life and makes sure lost people are found. Grace and peace to you, Sublime.